Fabian?
If a woman or a man have the need for approval, for example, and she or he gets it, but don't really receive it, so he demands more and more and more.
Every addiction is like that, Fabian. Every addiction is like you never can get enough. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So if you need approval and it's an addiction, you're never going to get enough. You're going to need more and more and more and more. Yep. Go on.
So what
do you do about that?
Yeah.
Yes, you've got to feel the reason for the addiction, don't you? So if the addiction is I want approval, then what does that mean? What is the grief going to probably be?
Feeling of worthlessness?
Yeah, that you're unwilling to feel, right? And you're so unwilling to feel it that you're willing to suck approval from everyone around you rather than just learn how to approve of yourself, right? So that means that you have grief associated with either feeling worthless or having disapproval in your past, and you're not letting it go. And so you become like say to the group in Australia, you become like a sucking octopus, like putting your tentacles around the people who will give you the addiction and sucking the life out of them.
Do the sound effect, babe.
Like sucking the life out of it. Yeah. And that's what your addictions do. Your addictions are like that. They suck the life out of people around you. Where do you think the whole idea of a vampire came from? It comes from spirit world, where people who on earth were in these addictions sucking the life out of other people, and when they get to the spirit world, they look like what people now have drawn as vampires. That's how they look. You're going to be shocked if you visit the hells one day, right? Because many of you will realise, wow, that emotion created the person looking like that. And you're going to see the link between the emotion and their physical appearance. And it's absolutely shocking when you see it first for the average person. Right? So for most people in addiction with regard to approval, you're sucking the life out of the people around you. Right? You're also very prone to dark spirit influence, because the spirits will give you approval as long as you give them something, whatever that thing is. A lot of times that thing is as long as you have a life of like sexual infidelity, or as long as you have a feeling that you can, take from everyone around you, they'll give you that approval. As long as, you treat people a certain way, whether that's, by abusing them, so they feel a sense of power, then they'll give you the approval for that. And you're very prone to actually being influenced down a very dark road when you're seeking for approval.
It's quite damaging to your sense of self, the approval addiction, because you end up being pulled to do things to get that feeling of approval. But if you're not careful, you've done that so much in your life that you can't tell what your real desire is anymore, because you're just so motivated to get the external feeling from people. And so then your reason for acting becomes based on their desires, their wants, what they will, the barter. If you do this, they will give you the approval. But you can get to the point where you can't really understand, well, what do I want to do it, or is it just because I get that feeling? So
you lose all sense of your own will.
Yeah.
You don't understand how to use your own free will.
I see that a lot in kids now, because there's so much kind of encouragement, quote unquote, and approval given for everything, that kids become very addicted to the external approval rather than having their own sense of, I achieved something, or I was interested in that and I followed that desire. So
now they get, what is it, participation awards, isn't it? Now that's teaching staff and parents avoiding their own emotions about their own approval in their own childhood by giving their children constant approval for everything the child does, and the child learns after a while that anything it does, it should get approval for. And in the end, there's a lot of things you do you shouldn't get approval for because they're wrong. But the child doesn't ever learn that. So they end up doing a lot of things that are quite bad, but they get approval for all of it. And in the end, they also end up being adults without any will. The only will they have is if they get approval. So they don't create good things unless they get approval for it. They need another person. They can't do it themselves. They need, like, it's like me saying, oh, I want to go and teach divine truth in the world. And then I go, oh, but I need approval. Like, how's that going to work? I know that everybody who's confronted in truth hates it. How's it going to work that I'm going to get approval? So you can see I might have a desire to do it, but if I need approval, I'm not going to do it. You know, unless I can approve of myself doing it and enjoy the fact that I love doing it, then I'm not going to be driven to do it. Because if I need approval, like, hardly anybody ever in my entire time we've been teaching for the last, on earth this time and in the first century, so I've met literally hundreds of thousands of people in that process, millions of people really. No one gave me approval about it. There was too many challenges. There's too much challenging to give approval for it. And so if you don't get approval, then you might stop doing a good thing. But if you do get approval for doing a bad thing, then you may do it more. And it's very damaging to your soul. Yeah.
Things that might help is, praying about what the addiction is covering. So the lack of worth, the feeling of disapproval.
Lack of direction in life.
Yeah. The other things that might help is, really focusing on what do I really desire, and even contemplating doing that and contemplating encountering lack of approval for your true desires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do the things you like or want to do or you think are good to do for the world and for yourself. And then sometimes you might get approval for it. A lot of times you may not. And what are your motivations after that? Let's say you don't get the approval. Do you keep doing it? That's proof you're dealing with the addiction, if you keep doing it.
And you'll feel things in that process.
Yeah.
If you don't, you just stop doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the average person on earth has a good idea. Most of you probably have a good idea every day. I would like to do this, or I'd like to do that, or this is a great idea, I think that's a great idea. Very few people do it because of the issue of approval. Once they start doing it, people don't respond the way they expected. People sometimes respond harshly, or they just don't care. And because you're not getting the sense of approval, not getting the sense of like everybody liking you doing it, then you stop. Start looking for another job to do until you find one that somebody approves of. But now you're not being you. So it's a major issue. Approval, security is another major issue. Doing things just for the sake of security is a very poor motivation for doing something. Yeah. Ironically, when you do things for the sake of security, you attract people that are more insecure to be with.
Yeah.
It's an interesting fact. When you do things for the sake of approval, you attract people who don't really approve of you. They think they're better than you. So that's interesting. When you do things for the sake of being protected, the person often thinks they own you. Yeah. So that's quite threatening, actually. So a lot of times we don't realise that our addictions lead us into a state of more uncertainty and more threat. We're thinking that our addictions make us more comfortable, but actually our addictions make us more threatened, more in danger, right, is what I see. So the more a person engages addictions, the more dangerous your life becomes, actually. Yeah. And that's interesting in itself too. Even the addiction to just avoid people. is more dangerous than if you didn't avoid people, because if you avoid people, no one will know when you need any help. So let's say you injure yourself, like you fall off a ladder or something. You might die from it because nobody knows that you fell off the ladder because you had no interactions with people to know, and you'd have to fix it all yourself. And what if you can't? What if you're unconscious for a day or two in the snow or whatever? You'll be dead from that. You know what I mean? There's so many bad things that can happen when you just meet an addiction, and most of us think our addictions are better, and yet actually they expose us to more danger. And that is something we need to come to terms with in our future as well, that addictions are dangerous. They're not just innocent, they are dangerous. So every woman who has an addiction to please a man, you are placing yourself in danger. You're going to attract men who think they're better than you and who think they can control your life and who think they own you, and you're actually placing yourself in more danger because it's those kind of men who abuse women. Right? So placing yourself in more danger. Most of us don't realise that. You guys who are in competition with your father, and you're in an addiction to compete with your father, you're going to meet a man sooner or later who's in more addiction than you, and he's going to get violent with you about it. Right? Your addictions lead to more danger, and that is a fact of life. And yet we think they lead to comfort. This is, our brain, our intellect, not very clever. Not clever. Driven by the emotions. We're stupid here. Our brain, which is meant to be used to benefit our body and keep it functioning and all those kind of things, and to make logical decisions, right? Our brain is making very illogical decisions based on the emotions we store, and those emotions are driving every decision and the justification for every one of those decisions, and we think we're being logical and clever, and we're being quite silly. And it comes out in every aspect of human life.